Hello friends, today let us talk about the Dahsala system. This is the system of revenue instituted during the 24th regnal year of Akbar, that is 24th year from the time he ascended the throne, that would be 1580. So, this was the new land revenue administrative system which was instituted in 1580 in the 24th regnal year of Akbar, and we should remember that it followed from a process of experimentation, it followed from a process of innovation, and it also borrowed elements from land revenue systems which were prevalent even before the Mughal Empire in India. So, an important element which was borrowed from the land revenue system of Sher Shah Suri was the Zapti system. The system of ascertaining the amount of revenue to be paid, the revenue assessment system, the Zapti system was incorporated into the Dahsala system, and also an important element which was carried from the Sher Shah's revenue administrative system was the Jarib, the instrument of measurement. This used to be, the zarib used to be a length of rope, okay, a length of hempen rope, but it was changed during the Dahsala system into a stick made out of bamboo and made out of metals, okay. So these are some of the systems which have been carried forward, and then there are innovative elements in this system also, and now we will go into the innovative elements of this system. What we see is an intense period of experimentation before the institution of the Dahsala system. Right after the beginning of the reign of Akbar, we see an intense period of experimentation. Okay, a very first experiment we can say in the process of instituting the Dahsala system, the very first experiment or the innovation that we can see is the delineation of the Khalisa land. Okay, so Khalisa land which is directly under the revenue administration of the crown, okay, land which is distinct from the provinces and the provincial revenue, land from which the revenue collected will go directly into the imperial treasury for imperial purposes, was delineated by whom? By Aitmat Khan. Aitmat Khan, he is one of the trusted lieutenants of Akbar. So Akbar's lieutenant, that is one of the trusted eunuchs in Akbar's court, Aitmat Khan, he delineates Khalisa from the other, from the provincial territories, and revenue from Khalisa will flow directly into royal treasury. Now, let us see why such a step is required. Such a step is required because salaries have to be paid to the nobles, all right, because the Mughal administration at that point of time was fund crunch. There was a crunch in funds, there was inflation when the Jamadami, that is the assessment of the revenues from the Jagirs, okay, the Jamadami of the Jagirs were inflated during Bairam Khan's regency. So, to overcome such difficulties at the very beginning, Khalisa lands were delineated from provincial lands, and then we proceed to the second innovative aspect. During the divanship of Muzaffar Khan, one of the important nobles in Akbar's court, Muzaffar Khan, and also under influence of Todarmal, what we see is the order passed by which Kanungos, remember this title, okay. This is an administrative title, okay. They have to do with revenue administration. They make revenue, assessment, and they are in a secretarial capacity. They make, registers of revenues, okay. They make complex calculations and complex, accounting processes of the revenue administrative process, okay. So Kanungos, which are mostly zamindars, okay, provincial zamindars. These provincial zamindars were asked to prepare what they call those complicated account books, okay, complicated account books which takes into account the production, productivity, the type of crops being produced in the provinces, and then submit those books, submit those registers back to the central authority, and then certain central Kanungos. Now Kanungos were of two types, so these were the provincial Kanungos, and their books will go to the central Kanungos, okay. Kanungos in the center, okay. So these books will go to the central Kanungos, and the central Kanungos will inspect them, and on the basis of central inspection they will take out dastaks, sorry, not dastaks, dasturs, okay. So what does dastur mean? Now these dasturs were cash rates. Now Mughal administration paid great emphasis on collecting revenue in cash. Why? Because if you are paying out, if you are collecting revenue in cash and then paying out in cash, what happens is that it buttresses the centralized authority. You are not giving away revenue rights, which is part of the central, authority, which is an inalienable part of a centralized state. Okay, you are not giving it away by giving away revenue rights. Rather, you collect cash, collect your revenue in cash, and then you pay it out in cash. And also, it reduces a great many steps in the procurement of the revenue, because you don't have to buy the crops and then sell it and then realize the amount in cash. It reduces all of those interim steps, and then you have a you have a concrete amount with you. So there was this system of collecting revenue in cash, and for that what happened was that there was a central dastur, that is a cash rate list, a centralized cash rate list, which is a conversion list of converting the rates of revenue into cash, converting the crop rates into cash rates, okay, which was centralized in nature. Now there was a problem with this. What happened is that people who are living in the countryside will have to pay revenue at the same rate which is prevalent in the center, and the center being an urbanized area, they of the prices used to be always high, and therefore the cash rate, the conversion rate also used to be very high. So now the people who are living in the rural areas, they will have to pay at those high rates. So there was a unrest among the rural peasantry, and there was a need to tackle this problem, and therefore this Kanungo experiment, the experiment by which separate dasturs, that is the cash rate, okay, separate dasturs were created for the provincial dasturs, okay. So there were separate dasturs created for different provinces, okay, and now peasantry are going to pay according to the dasturs in their own prevalent provinces. So this was also an innovative process, and then we go into the Karori experiment from there on, okay. So this was the second experiment, the first being the Khalisa experiment, the second being the Kanungo experiment, and now we go into the Karori experiment. See, by conducting the Karori experiment, what the Mughal state is trying to do is ascertain the kind of crops, the amount of crops, the kind of land, and also the amount of revenue that can be realized from a particular area of land. They are trying to gather information, because in order to institute a concrete revenue system, you need information first. So by Karori experiment, what the Mughal administration does is they appoint Karoris, okay. They appoint Karoris who are generally amils, okay, of provinces. Amils meaning revenue collection officers. They are given the title of Karori, and they are given a piece of land which could yield a crore tanka, okay, crore tanka. So tanka being a unit of money, and a monetary unit of the period. So they were given an area of land which would yield a crore tanka, okay, and they were given the responsibility of surveying that land, okay. They were provided with various a retinue of officers who could help them in conduction of their duties, but they were given the duty of surveying that land. And by doing so, what the Mughal administration was trying to do was get information. So after all of these experiments had been conducted, they had gained sufficient information, okay, about the land, the cultivable land, the kind of crops being cultivated, the yields of various different kind of land, and only after that Dahsala system was instituted. Now when we are talking about Dahsala system is not a system of fixing revenue for 10 years, okay. It is not the Dahsala, the word Dahsala, which means 10 years, does not refer to a 10-year lease period or 10-year term. What it refers to is, while preparing the dasturs, 10 years, the previous 10 years, suppose preparing the Dastur for 1580, while preparing the Dastur for 1580, what would be taken in account was the prices, the fluctuations in prices and the crop cash rates, okay, of the previous 10 years, and then a complex process of taking out averages will be done, and then they will be asked to pay a particular amount of revenue. So, that is what Dahsala is. It takes into account the previous 10 years, the fluctuation in the cash rates of previous 10 years, the crops and productivity in the previous 10 years, and after taking into consideration all those variables, a rate is given according to which revenue is realized. This is a complex process, but at the same time this provides an accurate estimate of how much revenue we are to collect, the state is to collect, or how much revenue could be realized from a particular piece of land. Now, what this facilitates is that it can predict the amount of revenue that the imperial treasury would gain, the amount of revenue that a provincial treasury would gain, and so it helps in planning campaigns, it helps in paying salaries to the mansabdars, it helps in various welfare projects also. So, this was a very important step which was taken, the Dahsala system. Now, according to the Dahsala system, land was also graded, okay. So, land were graded into 4 types, okay. So, the first gradation was the polage land which was fertile, which was cultivated every year. So, they will pay revenue at whatever rate that, has been submitted by the central authority. Then there was the parauti land. Now, parauti land were those land which had to be kept fallow for at least 1 year because of their lack of fertility. So, this kind of land also paid the same amount which the polage land paid whenever they were cultivated. But then there were the chachar lands. These chachar lands were those kind of lands which had to be kept at least fallow for at least 3 years. So, this kind of land paid the revenue in gradations. So, the first year they will pay less, second year they will pay a little bit more than what they paid in the first year. In the third year they will pay the amount which has been specified according to the central authority. So, this is chachar land, and then there is the banjar land, the land which has been left fallow for a long time, wasteland, and to this kind of land, there was a conscious effort by Mughals to develop this kind of land, the Banjar lands also. There was a conscious effort by the Mughals to improve wastelands, and what they did was they fixed a revenue on the wastelands, and they fixed a responsibility upon the owner of a wasteland, or a responsibility upon the revenue officials of a province to improve upon Banjar lands, because the Banjar lands would also carry a revenue demand, but this demand had to be met with gradation of 5 years. So, this was how land was graded, and this was how revenue was extracted from the various grades of land. Now, we would think that the Dahsala system being instituted, the only form of assessing the revenue due from a particular piece of land would be the Zapti system of assessment, okay, the system of assessment which has been borrowed from Shershah Suri, which is suited to the Dahsala system, and the use of the Jarib, okay, which is suited to the institution of the Dahsala system, but this would be wrong. There were other methods which were used in making revenue assessments. Those methods were Kankut, Batai, okay, and later on Nasak. So, we see that during the Kanungo experiment, Kankut was the method of assessment during the Kanungo experiment, and this method of assessment, it persists even after the institution of Dahsala system. Certain areas might say, okay, we would be not paying according to the Zapti systems, we will be paying according to the Kankut system, and it might be favorable taking in view the circumstances, the grassroots circumstances of that particular area. So, the Kankut system was used. Sometimes there was the system of Batai used. Batai means the state and the cultivator, they would divide the crops amongst themselves, and then the crop the revenue will be paid in kind, okay, by division of crops. Therefore, Batai, okay, that is Batna, that is sharing, okay. And then the Nasak system, which will become later on, which will become the the predominant system of revenue assessment. In the NASAC system, the cultivators are given the opportunity of selecting the prevailing method of assessment. Suppose in a land, Kankut method of assessment is prevailing. So, they are given the option of selecting the previous method of assessment. So, they can pay according to the Kankut assessment, but if they want new assessments to take place according to the Dahsala system, they could opt for that. And what it does is reduces the burden of assessment from the state. We have to make assessments every year, so it reduces the burden of doing so. If the peasant says that we will be paying according to the older method of assessment only. So, if there is Batai prevalent there, the peasants might say that we will be paying according to Batai only. So, it reduces the burden from the state of carrying out the Dahsala assessment, that is the Zapti assessment. Okay. So, these are the different forms of assessment methods which also prevailed even after the institution of the Dahsala system. Now, as I have already mentioned, Dahsala system, it is a complex system of assessing land revenue and then realizing land revenue. But what it does is streamline the process of revenue administration, the process of collecting revenue, the process of disbursing salaries, the process of ascertaining what the imperial treasury is actually worth. Okay. So, it streamlines all of those areas, okay, all of those areas of revenue administration and financial administration of the Mughal state, and what it does is provides longevity to the entire Mughal state, and what it provides is it buttresses the Mansabdari system, which will be also instituted during this similar time frame, which is contiguously instituted in the Mughal empire. The Mansabdari system also the Dahsala system also becomes very of cardinal importance when it comes to the institution of the Mansabdari system also. So, this in a nutshell is what the Dahsala system is. So, I hope so that you guys will work hard, you guys will keep working hard and do very good in your studies. Okay, with that I leave you for today. Thank you.